today, we're tackling something really fascinating. It sits right at the crossroads of, well, technology, presidential power, and, yeah, political fighting. Imagine this. Major decisions, like those big pardons or policy shifts, being challenged, not because of what they are, but just because of how the document got signed.
And specifically, tying that signing method, the Autopen, directly to claims about the former president's mental state.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Our mission today is a deep dive into that 100-page report, the one from House Oversight Committee Republicans about former President Joe Biden's Autopen use. And look, this isn't just some minor political spat. If the courts were to take these arguments seriously, the implications could, well, they could really shake up how we view executive authority.
Exactly. For you listening, the stakes here are actually pretty profound. This report is, you could say, a masterclass in how congressional investigations can use procedural details. In this case, it's a standard signing machine, right? But they're using it to mount a full-on assault on the legitimacy of the previous administration's actions. We're going to cover the specific claims, sure, but also look at the legal language they're using, this whole idea of declaring actions void. It's clever. Definitely controversial.
Right. So let's start with the main accusation. Committee Chair James Comer put out this huge report. And the core argument is that some things signed by Autopen were, quote, illegitimate.
Illegitimate, yeah. And the reason they tie it directly to this claim that Biden was suffering from mental decline. The suggestion being he might not have even known what was in the documents being signed by the machine.
And that claim, the mental decline part, that's really the key to their whole legal challenge, isn't it?
It is. It's the engine. The demand in the report, you see it repeated, is for Attorney General Pam Bondi to step in, to investigate and this is the crucial phrase, declare void all executive actions signed by the Autopen without proper corresponding contemporaneous written approval traceable to the president's own consent.
Wow. So basically they're saying the Autopen signature itself means nothing.
Pretty much. Unless there's also like a separate note, handwritten maybe, from the president right at that moment saying, yes, sign this document now. It's a very high bar.
And this is where it gets really interesting politically speaking, because they didn't just aim this at routine paperwork.
No. They targeted very specific, very politically charged actions, things that definitely got the Republican base fired up.
Like what specifically?
Pardons. They focused heavily on pardons.
Which makes sense, right?
Pardons are maybe the clearest example of a president acting with pretty unchecked power. And these pardons fell into two main buckets that got scrutinized. First, you had pardons for close associates, family members.
His two brothers, sister, and his son, Hunter Biden, right? For those federal gun and tax charges.
Exactly. Preemptive clemency for his inner circle. That was one category.
And the second category sounds like it was aimed right at the opposition.
You could definitely read it that way. The report specifically flags pardons for people seen as political adversaries or key witnesses related to the January 6th investigation.
Okay, so who are we talking about there?
Figures like Dr. Anthony Fauci, former Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley, even members of Congress involved in the Jan 6 probe, like Adam Schiff, who's now a senator, and their staff.
Wow. Even the police officers who testified.
Yes. Washington police officers, too. So by questioning the mechanism, the Autopen signature, they're trying to undermine the legitimacy of these really controversial pardons. It's a way to challenge the action without challenging the pardon power itself directly.
Okay, so if the actions are being questioned, the report then moves into this idea of a cover-up, right?
Exactly. That's the next step in their logic. The report, all 100 pages, accuses the former administration, its allies, of actively hiding Biden's supposed cognitive decline from everyone. They frame it as, a risk to national security, something that damaged public trust.
And did they name names? Who did they single out?
Oh, yes. They pointed fingers. Senior aides Anthony Bernal and Annie Tomasini were flagged for further scrutiny by the Justice Department. The report suggests they were part of this alleged conspiracy.
And the White House physician, too, Dr. O'Connor?
Big focus on him, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, when he was called to testify before the committee.
He took the fifth, right?
He did. Invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, which, of course, Republicans immediately framed as obstruction, evidence of a cover-up.
But his lawyer had an explanation for that.
Yes. His attorney argued it was about patient confidentiality, saying that revealing private medical information would breach, quote, the most fundamental ethical duty of any physician. But Republicans weren't buying it. They didn't just criticize him. They actually asked the D.C. Board of Medicine to revoke his medical license.
Okay, hang on. The central claim is that aides were basically running things, signing off on policies without Biden knowing.
That's the allegation, yes.
So what actual proof does the report offer for that specific conspiracy, like hard evidence?
Well, that's the crucial point the sources highlight. The report itself, it does not include any concrete evidence of that. No proof that aides signed things without his knowledge or that he was fundamentally unaware of what was being done in his name. That's a really important caveat.
So if there's no concrete proof of a conspiracy, what is the report based on? How do they justify these broad conclusions?
It seems to lean heavily on inference, on connecting dots based on public perception. The sources say the report keeps bringing up things like public gaffes, signs of aging.
Things that are often subjective, right?
Exactly. And poll numbers about his approval rating or public opinion on his health. It's less about documented wrongdoing by staff and more about arguing there's a gap between the president's perceived fitness and these major decisions getting the Autopen signature.
Okay. That takes us right to the other side. These are serious claims, actions being void, staff cover-ups. How did the Biden camp, the Democrats, push back?
They pushed back hard, rejected the whole premise. Former President Biden put out a statement himself, pretty direct.
What did he say?
He said, "Let me be clear. I made the decisions during my presidency. Any suggestion that I didn't is ridiculous and false." Plain language. And he also specifically addressed the pardons, the volume of them, said he'd authorized them orally beforehand precisely because there were so many to process quickly. The Autopen was for efficiency.
And what about Democrats on the Oversight Committee?
It's just as forceful. Representative Robert Garcia, for instance, called the whole thing a sham investigation. He argued that the witnesses who actually testified, they confirmed Biden fully executed his duties, and that he authorized every single action, including every use of the Autopen.
Now, let's pull back for some context. This Autopen thing, it's not new, is it?
Not at all. And the sources make sure to point this out. Autopens, mechanical signature devices, they're standard White House equipment. Have been for decades.
Former President Trump used one.
Absolutely. Trump used one.
Yeah.
Other presidents going way back. It's just a tool for efficiency, signing hundreds of letters, proclamations, routine stuff.
Okay, so if it's standard, how do Republicans make the leap from standard practice to constitutional crisis? Especially when, as the sources note, Chair Comer himself used a digital signature on letters and subpoenas for this very investigation. That seems ironic.
It does raise questions about consistency, doesn't it? But the way they frame it legally is key. What's fascinating is their focus. They're not saying the Autopen machine is legal. The claim hinges on the absence of that specific, proper, corresponding, contemporaneous, written approval.
Ah, that phrase again.
Exactly. That specific wording. It's designed to elevate the standard for authentication way beyond normal procedure. It turns a matter of administrative convenience into a question of, like, conscious, provable, immediate intent.
So the committee itself can't just declare Biden's actions void?
No, constitutionally, a congressional committee doesn't have that power. But the report serves as, well, ammunition. It's material they can hand over to the Justice Department for an investigation, which we know AG Bondi says is happening.
Yeah.
Or it could be used in future lawsuits challenging those pardons or other actions.
So when Democrats warn about this setting a dangerous precedent, that sounds pretty plausible then.
It does.
I mean, if you create this super high standard for contemporaneous written consent for Autopen use, couldn't it be used against any administration later on, especially now with everything being so digital?
Absolutely. That's the warning. You're opening a Pandora's box, potentially. If political opponents can now routinely challenge not the substance of a policy, but the method of signing it, it could create constant instability. Think about it. Every time a future president uses an Autopen for a big spending bill or mass clemencies, anything significant,
They could face lawsuits demanding that little piece of paper, proving they were thinking about that specific document 5 minutes before it was signed.
potentially, yes. It injects a whole new layer of legal vulnerability into routine executive functions. It's a door that, once opened, might be very hard to close again.
Let's talk about the timing, too. This report didn't just drop randomly. It came out during a government shutdown, right?
Okay.
And about 10 months into the Trump presidency.
Right. The timing feels significant. High political friction already existed. And Speaker Mike Johnson immediately amplified the report. He claimed it could have major implications for the legality of Biden's actions. Even said Biden was checked out of his job for quite some time, and everybody knows it. So it instantly became part of the broader political messaging.
And this fits into a larger pattern that the source material points to, right? This idea of political retribution.
It seems to. The sources remind us that Trump himself had previously ordered an inquiry into Biden's Autopen use and his cognitive state.
And AG Bondi, confirming her office, was already reviewing the Autopen use, calling Comer's report extremely helpful. That connects the dots.
It does. And the sources broaden the lens further. They mention critiques arguing that the Justice Department, under pressure from Trump via Truth Social, has pursued cases against several high-profile Trump critics.
People like Comey, James, Bolton, Schiff.
Exactly. Comey, Letitia James, John Bolton, and the probe into Schiff. Critics see a pattern of using government power for political payback. So the question hovering over this Autopen report is it really about administrative procedure? Or is it more about providing a justification, a sort of official cover for pursuing political targets?
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you, the listener? We've basically got two completely opposite stories here. One side, the Oversight Committee Republicans, is alleging this huge cover-up, saying it risked national security, maybe even makes presidential actions void because of questions about mental fitness.
And on the other side, you have Democrats calling it a politically motivated sham, a waste of time and resources, purely aimed at getting back at political opponents while, the government was shut down.
The one thing nobody disputes is that the Autopen was used for some very significant decisions, like those pardons.
Right. And the core legal fight boils down to that specific phrase, that missing contemporaneous written consent.
So this raises a really important question, doesn't it? It goes beyond just Biden or Trump.
It really does. It forces us to think about authorization versus authentication. The former president says, "I orally authorize these." The committee demands immediate written proof of consent tied to the physical act of signing. So, if really high-level actions like pardons can be legally challenged just based on how they were authenticated, even if oral authorization is claimed, what kind of precedent does that set?
Especially for future presidents who rely on these tools, digital signatures, autopens, just to keep up with the pace of modern government.
Exactly. It's a huge question about process versus intent.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about the difference. On one hand, you have a mechanical signature, often used for speed and convenience. On the other, you have the idea of a very specific, documented chain of command proving the president consciously intended that exact action at that exact moment, especially for something as sensitive as a pardon for a controversial figure. When technology speeds everything up, should the legal proof required for presidential intent stay stuck in the era of pen and paper? Or does the method of signing now carry more weight than the decision itself? Something to explore on your own.